I'm 79 years old, and the day my son left me at the nursing home, he didn't even look back. He smiled, kissed my forehead, and said it was for my own good. I nodded, because that's what mothers do. We make it easier for our children, even when our hearts are breaking. The room they gave me was small, with pale walls and a window that barely opened. That first night I sat on the bed and held my purse tightly, as if it was the last piece of my old life. I had raised 3 children, buried my husband, and survived things no one ever saw. And yet, here I was, alone, forgotten, reduced to a name on a clipboard. But what no one knew was that I wasn't as helpless as they thought. For years, I had quietly prepared for a moment like this. You see, when my husband passed away, he left me more than just memories. He left me something that I kept hidden, something I never told my children about. Not because I didn't trust them, but because I knew how life changes people. That night, while the hallway lights flickered and distant voices echoed, I made a decision. I would not spend my remaining days waiting for visits that might never come. I would not become invisible. I had one last plan, and it had been waiting for the right moment. The next morning, I smiled at the nurses, played the role of the quiet old woman, and carefully observed everything around me, every schedule, every routine, every locked door. Because if life had taught me anything, it was this: never underestimate a woman who has nothing left to lose. And for the first time in years, as I looked out that small window, I didn't feel weak. I felt ready. The days in the nursing home followed a predictable rhythm, but I paid attention to every detail like it mattered, because to me it did. Breakfast was always at 7, medications at 9, and by evening most of the staff grew tired and careless. They thought we didn't notice, but age sharpens a different kind of awareness. I made friends slowly, especially with a woman named Margaret, who had been there longer than anyone else. She told me stories of people who had come and gone, of families who visited once and never returned. I listened, but I never shared my truth. Instead, I kept my plan close, like a secret heartbeat. Every night, after the lights dimmed, I would take out a small envelope from inside my purse and stare at it. Inside was a key and a folded piece of paper, directions, written in my husband's handwriting. He always said, "If the world ever turns its back on you, remember, you still have control." Back then, I didn't understand what he meant. Now, I did. One afternoon, my son called. His voice was rushed, distracted. He asked if I was settling in, as if this place was a vacation. I told him I was fine. I didn't tell him that I cried myself to sleep every night, or that I replayed every memory of our life together, wondering where I had gone wrong. After the call, something inside me shifted. That was the moment I knew I wasn't waiting anymore. I began preparing quietly. I memorized the staff rotations, noticed which doors were unlocked, and built trust with the nurses so they wouldn't suspect anything. I even started walking more, pretending it was for my health, but really I was testing my strength, because my plan required courage, timing, and one final act of faith. And as the days passed, I could feel it, the moment getting closer. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was getting ready to leave. The night I chose was unusually quiet, almost as if the world itself was holding its breath. I waited until the hallway lights dimmed and the sound of footsteps faded into silence. My heart was steady, not afraid, just certain. I dressed slowly, wearing the same coat I had arrived in, the one that still carried the faint scent of my old home. I took one last look at the room, at the bed where I had cried, at the window that had witnessed my loneliness, and I felt no sadness, only closure. The envelope was in my hand now, the key pressing against my palm like a promise. I stepped into the hallway, moving carefully, just another old woman taking a late-night walk. No one stopped me. No one noticed. That's the thing about being forgotten. You become invisible, and invisibility can be powerful. I reached the back exit, the one I had studied for weeks. It wasn't locked that night, just as I had predicted. When I stepped outside, the cold air hit my face, and for the first time in months, I felt alive. I didn't run. I didn't rush. I simply walked, following the directions my husband had left behind. The streets were quiet, the city distant but familiar. Every step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. It took longer than I expected, but I didn't stop, not once, because I knew what was waiting for me at the end of that journey. When I finally reached the address, my hands trembled, not with fear, but with anticipation. It was a small house, nothing grand, but it held a lifetime of secrets. I used the key, and the door opened with a soft creak. Inside, everything was exactly as he had promised. And in that moment, standing in the doorway of a life I thought I had lost, I realized something powerful. I was never abandoned. I had just been waiting for the right time to find myself again. Inside the house, the silence felt different. It wasn't empty like the nursing home. It was peaceful, almost welcoming. I walked slowly through each room, my fingers brushing against furniture covered in thin layers of dust, memories rising with every step. My husband had prepared this place years ago, quietly, carefully, as if he knew one day I would need it. On the table in the living room, I found a letter addressed to me. My hands shook as I opened it, hearing his voice in every word. He wrote about love, about trust, and about the importance of never losing yourself, no matter how the world treats you. He knew our children might not always understand, that life might pull them away, but he wanted to make sure I would never feel truly alone. Tears filled my eyes, but this time they weren't from pain. They were from relief. I wasn't forgotten. I wasn't discarded. I had been protected in a way I never fully realized. The next morning I made tea and sat by the window, watching the sunlight fill the room. For the first time in a long while, I felt calm. Days turned into weeks, and I slowly rebuilt a life of my own choosing. I planted flowers in the small garden, cooked meals I loved, and even laughed again. One afternoon, my son finally found me. He stood at the door, shocked, confused, maybe even a little ashamed. He asked why I left, why I didn't tell him. I looked at him gently and said, because I needed to remember who I was before I became just your responsibility. He didn't have an answer, and that was okay. Not every story needs an apology to find its ending. As he left, I realized something important. My last plan was never about escape. It was about freedom, and at 79 years old, I finally understood what it meant to live for myself. If this story touched your heart even a little, don't just scroll away. There are so many voices like mine, stories that were never heard, truths that stayed hidden for years. By subscribing, you're not just following a channel. You're giving those stories a chance to be told, to be remembered, and maybe, just maybe, you'll find a piece of yourself in them too. So, stay with me, because this isn't the end. It's only the beginning.